risk their lives.
Polls are open during the coronavirus pandemic. Voters in Wisconsin, many wearing masks, lined up outside polling places around the state. One we caught holding a protest sign, all to cast ballots in today's spring election.
We have video from the city of Milwaukee where the city has only 5 polling places open today. Voters this morning waited up to 2 hours trying to safely social distance. The governor tried to postpone today's in-person voting, but the state Supreme Court overturned his order.
WISN 12 News' Kent Wayne got caught up with the man who led the court fight to keep today's election as is. Kent joins us live from Marshall High School.
Yeah, this is one of the 5 polling sites in the city of Milwaukee, and at a time when folks are ordered to stay at home to avoid crowds, I want to show you the scene here. Take a look at this. Folks have been lining up in incredibly long lines. This one, as far as you can see, down to the end of the block and around the corner. There's a line of cars here, people who are doing drive-up voting. Voters have been showing up at polling sites all across the state today. That after Republican leaders, including Robin Vos, fought to keep the polls open. And we caught up with Vos today as he was working as a poll worker. At this Burlington voting site, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos and other poll workers wore protective equipment. Voters never left their cars, and we had our temperature checked before being allowed in. A very different scene from the long lines of Milwaukee voters in the midst of a pandemic. You think voting in person is putting people at risk today?
I don't. I mean, I look at this and say to myself that we have every single opportunity to be safe.
Vos and Senate Leader Scott Fitzgerald fought to keep the election on schedule after Governor Tony Evers tried to postpone it until June, causing the state Supreme Court to rule that Evers couldn't delay the vote single-handedly. You could have prevented this. It did not have to be a unilateral decision by the governor, and you chose not to. You chose to fight him on it. Why?
Well, because we already had made the decision weeks ago that the election was going to happen today.
I think it's a joke. I think it's unsafe, and I think it's a very irresponsible decision by Robin Vos.
Nothing is going to keep me from voting. Nothing. I am bound and determined to vote today.
You think it's safe?
As safe as it can be.
And as for the thousands of Milwaukee voters forced during the pandemic to filter into just 5 polling sites, you said your first priority is the safety and health of Wisconsinites. Do you think that's safe or healthy?
So that's a decision that unfortunately was made by the city of Milwaukee. 2,500 guardsmen with 500 more on call in case they were needed to be deployed. The city of Milwaukee made the decision to only have 5 polling places.
Kent joining us live again. Now, did Vos say anything about the thousands of voters who never received or haven't returned their absentee ballots?
Yeah, I asked him that question. He said he is concerned that some voters are being disenfranchised. He called it a shame to the system, but he said he is encouraged by the fact that most of the record million-plus absentee ballots that have been requested have been returned, and said he hopes that that number grows before the end of today, which is the deadline. Toy.
All right, Ken, thank you. Governor Tony Evers did comment on the election today. His tweet reiterated his concerns about the health implications of today's in-person voting while praising those who showed up to vote and those working the polls.
At this hour, the polls are still open. 12 News' Joyce Carbasiak is live at Milwaukee City Hall. Joyce?
Patrick, Milwaukee's Election Commission has its offices inside City Hall, and they'll be busy tonight. Polling places will stay open until 8 o'clock, and we have confirmed if you are in line at that time, you will still be allowed to vote. Now let's take a live look outside Riverside University High School on East Locust, where even before the sun came up, lines of voters were waiting to cast their ballot. And we're told the people standing in line right now have a 90-minute to 2-hour wait to do so. 12 News' Hannah Hilliard shows us the morning voter rush.
Before the polls even opened Tuesday.
I got here at 6:40 and I was all the way on the other side of the building.
Voters started lining up outside Riverside High School.
But I caught myself coming in early because I said, well, it's 7 o'clock, ain't nobody going to get out the bed.
And by 10:30, the line wrapped around the building and kept going and going for blocks. Most people in line on Tuesday were wearing masks, but other voters came with some different protective gear.
You can never be too safe today.
And I see you brought your own pen.
Yeah, trying to limit exposure as much as possible.
Inside the gymnasium, workers spread out the booths and wiped them down after every voter. It's an unprecedented election day some felt should have never happened.
How has the experience been so far for you?
Not good.
Why not?
Because we shouldn't have to come out here for our safety and endanger our safety.
I'm glad that I'm young. I'm glad I'm here to vote, but
regardless, I am disappointed.
But they just wanted to make sure their voices were heard.
I was one of the people who applied 3 weeks ago for an absentee ballot, and it did not arrive. So I'm here doing this
because I want to vote. I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't have missed this. I want to vote. I'm a voter.
On the east side of Milwaukee,
In spite of everything, that's what we do.
Hannah Hilliard, WISN 12 News.
And the polls were just as busy at Washington High School on the city's north side. Once voters got inside, poll workers wearing masks greeted them. The workers wiped down each individual station after every voter.
I'm a 71-year-old woman with underlying conditions, and I sat at home today and decided I had to be here to vote because I don't want this happening again.
We're risking our life to come out, but it's only a one-time thing, so I'm glad to see everybody turning out to vote.
Now here is a look at Milwaukee's polling sites. City voters can cast ballots at Riverside, Marshall, Washington, South Division, and Hamilton High Schools. It all depends on your aldermanic district. If you have an absentee ballot, it must be postmarked by today to have it count. You can also drop it off at one of these sites in Milwaukee by 8 o'clock tonight. Now, the election results will not be announced until next Monday, April 13th, when all of the ballots have been tallied. Patrick, back to you.
All right, Joyce, thank you very much. Reporting live in Milwaukee tonight.
Plexiglass at the polls. A South Milwaukee company built barriers to keep poll workers safe. WISN 12 News' Sarah Tamer shows us how they're being used.
Identification, please.
Voters walking inside South Milwaukee City Hall will